Welcome to the Hangar Deck Podcast. We bring amazing aviation talk and interviews for the aviation enthusiast. You are listening to www.thehangardeck.com with host Pitchlock Pete and the Hangar Deck crew. This show is brought to you by Leading Edge Aviation Consultants. Pre-flight is complete and the crew is strapping in. Stand by for Pitchlock Pete and the Hangar Deck team at the Hangar Deck Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Hangar Deck Podcast.
The Hangar Deck Podcast. I'm your host, Pitchlock Pete. We're Facebook Live tonight. It's February 24th, 2018, and we're streaming live on Facebook Live Saturday night. It's 6 p.m. And reached out to I can call you a friend. I reached out to a friend of mine that I met 2 years ago. Mr. Boom Powell has joined me on the Hangar Deck Podcast this evening. Hi, Boom. How are you?
I am doing terrifically, Pete. Thank you very much for doing that. Has it really been 2 years?
We met 2016 at Warbirds over the beach.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, it was my buddy Whitey, Andy White, said you gotta go down to this museum and see these guys. It's pretty incredible. But
no question about that. It's an amazing place.
Hey, Mike McLean joined, Dennis Anderson, Doug Kirk, and Dennis. Yeah, these guys are already listening to you. So we got a great show tonight at the Hangar Deck Podcast. Boom. I'm going to just pass it right off to you, Boom. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, your aviation background. I'm going to tee it up and you got it.
That's no fair because it just kind of leaves me in the lurch. Oh, boy, where do you start? I was a Navy scholarship kid. Went through, all I wanted to do was fly. I got to mention, part of the background, though, was my dad was a navigator in B-24s. Back during the war, and always stayed very air-minded. We would fly at least once a year. I grew up in Long Island, and we'd go up to Buffalo, and I still remember walking up the aisle of a DC-3. But anyway, stayed with it, always wanted to do it. Like I say, the Navy paid my way through school, and to me, graduation equaled a commission equaled Pensacola. Went straight into the Navy Training Command all the way through. What they called the jet pipeline back in those days, T-34s, T-2 Buckeyes, and then the Cougar, the marvelous little swept-wing veteran from way back. And after that, I went to a Skyhawk training, straight through Skyhawks.
Wow. You got to... I'm just trying to digest all that. I mean, please continue.
Oh, anyway, so we did that. Next thing you know, I'm deployed on the Intrepid, one of her attack carrier trips out to Vietnam. Did a full deployment with that. And then we all figured we were cannon fodder, but they already said that the squadron was going to be decommissioned when we got home, and sure enough, they were. And about half of us had enough short sea duty time, or we got orders to various other places. So I instructed in the A-4 RAG in Lemoore, California, for a couple of years. And then my life really got interesting. I was due for orders. The flying in Lemoore was sensational. It was some of the best I'd ever done. It was marvelous.
Wow.
Living conditions were not great. I had 3 little kids at that point. And, we're in the middle of the boondocks and dust and heat. And I said, where else can we go? There were still a couple A4 squadrons back up in Alameda, which is where I had been. I said, that's good. And I'm talking to my detailer, the guy that assigns these things. And he said, do you like A6s? Do you get A6s down here as a second choice? I said, oh, I love blowing stuff up. I said, I got no problems with flying A6s. Go up to Whidbey. And then he says, listen, would you go to the East Coast for A6s? I said, oh, hey, no problem. That sounds absolutely great. We had this real nice long chat going. It was kind of fun. And then he finally says, by the way, I see you got Vigilantes down here as a third choice. He said, are you serious?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's a good-looking airplane. Keep me in the cockpit. Bang, click, as he hung up. And the next 7 years of my life were determined.
Wow.
So it was kind of interesting. That's how I wound up in Vigilantes. I was a mid-rank lieutenant at the time, so it was kind of odd. The Viggies at the point were down in Naval Air Station Albany, and not many people knew about Old Binny. Notice I'm pronouncing
Where's
Albany,
that at?
New York. Albany is in New York.
Oh.
Old Binny is in southern Georgia. It used to be Turner Air Force Base. Long stories on how we wound up there. The community had moved from Sanford, Florida, the heavy recce community. Lock, stock, and barrel. We just took over this old Air Force base and did that. So anyway, I checked in Albany. Anyway, started training the Vig. Went through, loved the airplane. Again, did one deployment, and for different reasons, which we can talk about if you really want later on, I wound up as an instructor in the A-5 and did that, and eventually finished. I've been back to Vietnam again, by the way.
Yeah.
Unarmed and unafraid, as they say.
What year was this, Boom?
This was, let's see, 69. I reported to the RAG, and I deployed to Tonkin Gulf again in 70-71 on a Kitty Hawk.
Wow.
So
you first flew the hot rod, right? The A4.
Yeah.
Everybody calls it the hot rod. Is that?
Oh yeah, Heineman's hot rod. Yeah. Most of us call it the scooter, by the way.
The scooter. I came across a picture on a social feed today that I follow about the A4 Skyhawk. Right. There were nuclear canopy covers on the airplanes at one point. Did you ever?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the nuclear flash blast thing.
Yeah. Did you ever fly that?
Some of the airplanes had them. They sometimes use them for instrument training. The Vigilante had one.
Oh, really?
Because remember, originally it was a nuke bomber as well, and even when it became a reconnaissance airplane, they kept the bombing capability. And you look at the pictures of the cockpit in the early versions, you can see the white stuff behind where it flopped down over your head. And they took all those out after a while. They discovered, hey, we ain't doing this. This is silly. But there was still a bar across the right top of the canopy.
I saw the picture today of the canopy with it pulled all the way over the white.
Over.
Yeah. So it's like all instrument flying, right?
All instrument flying. We do it full instrument delivery. We used to practice those, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Do an idiot loop on the gauges. You think about it, there's no reason you really couldn't. It worked out very well. So yeah, silly stuff. The Navy was very concerned about the effect of nuclear bombers. You ever wonder why the Navy aircraft, the Navy attack aircraft, all of them, the fighters too, of the, let's see, into the 60s, into the 70s even, we had the gray and white paint scheme.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice that the flight control surfaces are white, top and bottom?
No, I did not know that.
The airplanes are white, but the rudders, the ailerons, and the and elevators were painted white on both sides. And that was for flash protection. It would reflect some of the light coming on, the sudden surge of light coming off of the thing.
Wow.
It was the purpose of that crazy bubble that came over the thing so the pilot wouldn't be blinded by all this light that came out. They tried all kinds of things. There was a complete white flight suit that they issued to A4 guys at one point. And I'm talking flight boots that were white, a white G suit, a white nylon flight suit, a white torso harness. They left the helmets all white, and you even had a white oxygen mask on the thing. Same idea with this.
Boom. Do you think there's pictures of these white flight suits at the Smithsonian or floating around anywhere?
Yes, there are. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, a guy I knew from Vigilantes had been in an A4 squadron with it, and he moved to Florida just recently, and then, even more recently, just died. But as he was leaving, he was unpacking all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he says, come on over and see what you want, see what's interesting, the leftovers. And he had a white torso harness and a white G suit. Now, for everybody out there that thinks all my old goodies or kids want them, and the answer is no, your kids don't want them. But I've learned the process now. So I took snapshots of them and I mailed them down to the Navy Museum in Pensacola, Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola.
Yeah.
And they went, yes.
Oh, really?
I got these. No, they did not have any of the white ones left over. I even had a picture of his squadron guys all lined up from an old newspaper, so the picture wasn't very good, from a newspaper. They're all dressed in white, these white flight suits. It was a rather intriguing idea, but good fun. So
right,
yeah, that was the whole white thing, and that's why our flight control surfaces were painted white, just when the bomb went off. And if you think that's wacky, another one they tried was eye patches. One of the other concepts was that you would put this patch down over one eye, and drop this nuke, and this giant flash would go off, and your one eye would kind of go, I can't see anything for a while, looking at a photo flash bulb. In the meantime, you flip the eye patch up, and that was the good eye. You're still doing that. And the one that I'm not sure if everybody even tried, but they had a special set of heavy goggles up that looked kind of normal at first.
Right.
Some sort of a I heard powdered lead or something up across the top with a photo sensor and an explosive charge on your forehead. Granted, a little tiny one. And when it sensed the flash, it went kapoof and lowered this stuff, and it became as dark as welder's goggles. I'm glad we didn't have to go drop the bomb.
Yeah, no joke.
My favorite from an old, the famous Captain Hook, as a matter of fact, was an A4 driver, when I was still a babe. And he said he always loved the junior officers with our nuclear strike mission. He says, hey, you guys all pictured it. You'd be launched from the carrier, you'd go out, you'd bomb someplace in Vladivostok, you'd fly back to the boat, and you'd be eating popcorn watching a movie 12 hours later.
Oh, wow. That's it's an amazing time back then, and it's definitely different times now for aviation and defense, and it's an incredible place we've came from. I'm fascinated with the A5, the A4, the F4, the F14.
They're all interesting. And I kind of laugh on the thing when I was instructing in the A4 RAG, the replacement squadron. We had, besides 100 some odd A4s of Bravos, Charlies, Echoes, Foxtrots, TA4s, we had 2 Sky Raiders.
Oh yeah,
the old multi-place versions, and they used them kind of as hack airplanes. They originally started as radar trainers before the TA4 came up, before there was a 2-place A4. And they loaded a bunch of us replacement pilots into the seat of this thing, and this guy would fly the Sky Raider, and they had the repeater scope down between us and try to show us how the radar worked. But in the meantime, they'd use them to, fly people and cargo and mechanics and parts and all kinds of things. Very useful to hack everything, including on and off the ship. So when I got checked out in the Sky Raider.
Wow.
I now claim I have flown the A1, I've ridden in the A3, I flew a lot of A4s, and I flew a lot of A5s, and I had a couple rides in an A6, and I even had a FAM ride in an A7. So I was running pretty well in sequence, except for the A2, but most people don't know what the A2 was.
Right. You mentioned the A3 briefly. I started researching a gentleman I met at the Smithsonian a couple of weeks ago. His name is Wolfgang Samuel. He wrote a couple of books. He flew the B-66 for the Air Force.
Okay.
Which is the Air Force's version of the A3 with ejection seats.
I'm shaking my head. If you go back and actually read in it, it's a classic Heinemann design of a case of form following function, and they look very much alike.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember the exact percentage, but it was something like 60% of the parts are not interchangeable.
Wow.
Different engines and everything else. But of course, you mentioned the big key one is that the Air Force had ejection seats. The Navy guys had a slide out of the belly to get out.
The danger zone for sure, right? So, so Boom, you wrote a book. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, which one? I mean, we talked about Wave Off before.
Right.
Do that. But the other ones, since we're all vigilantes, we're going to talk about vigilantes tonight. We get the right picture there? There we go.
Nice.
This is an Osprey book. Came out called The Vigilante in Combat. It obviously includes a little bit before and after, but basically it's just a vigilante's experience in Vietnam, where it was the point of mild pride, I guess. It had the highest loss rate of any airplane, every Navy airplane over there. I'm not sure if the 105s in the Air Force had a higher loss rate. And part of the reason was the mission of the vigilante, the reconnaissance thing. We did route reconnaissance, they called it. You'd run over trail and look for the down bridges and where the trucks are hiding and stuff like that. And those are okay. It was in a hostile environment. But the big one was called bomb damage assessment, BDA.
Right.
Okay, you wait for a giant alpha strike in to go, destroy the Tho Yen power plant or something. All the raiders would go in, the flak suppressors would go down, the bombs and everything else like that. And of course, the favorite description is, did you get a good hit? No, it was obscured in smoke and dust.
Right.
You never knew. So we'd have to wait about 10 minutes for the smoke and dust to subside. And that's just about the time it takes to reload everything. And then you came back over to take photographs to see if the attack guys had in fact gotten the target they were sent after. And like I say, that's how long it took them to reload. So when you came across a known set of space, they knew you were coming. And
Yeah.
lost a lot of edges. Lost 9 of them during linebacker.
9?
Yeah, during linebacker, and then a couple more in 72.
Wow.
During no, I'm sorry, not linebacker. No, I'm sorry, Rolling Thunder.
Rolling Thunder. Okay.
Yeah, because that was 4 years. Yeah, and then only a couple more during linebacker. Doing that, including the only one shot down by a MiG.
Really? Wow. That's
a guy named Al Agnew was in the thing and coming off of a target, I think, at Haiphong, and MiG came up behind him and put a missile up him.
wow.
One of these things, the airplane exploded. Unfortunately, his back seater, a wonderful kid named Mike Haefley, had gone through vigilante training with me. And Mike was killed, I think, in the explosion, maybe in the crash. And the kind of amusing part of the story, of course, this was the big Christmas campaign, the one just before Christmas. And Al Agnew, the pilot, his wife had sent him a present beforehand, I guess kind of for Christmas or something else like that. And then typical, so there he is on the ground, and the guy stripped him down to his underwear. And he was wearing boxer shorts with giant flowers on from his wife. I'm sure that must have been a heck of a warlike experience.
Yeah. That's wow. The detail. I'm amazed with all the detail, and I'm sure you wrote every single bit of detail in this book.
Well, this book has got as much as I can, and what makes it nice is it's got the history. It's got some wonderful profile drawings in it. I mean, I'm trying to think of the artist name right now, but did that covering almost all the squadrons. But I tried to keep it on the anecdotal level as much as possible to illustrate, some of the stories that went on, all kinds of them, and some of them weren't even particularly combat damage. A gent I worked for named Dave Sharp told the story of flying off the coast one day, and all of a sudden the airplane, what was it doing? It was just kind of wobbling around. And he calls his pilot and he's not getting any answer. And this airplane goes into a nosedive.
Wow.
And they're heading down to the water, and Dave keeps screaming at him finally. And as the guy described it later on, he says, you called me names that weren't really fair. And finally recovers and pulls up, and what had happened is his oxygen mask had slipped off a little bit, and he'd gone hypoxic.
Wow.
And one of these things, since they got the lower altitude, that little bit of air that was coming in was enough to.
So you still had the effects from the hypoxia going on there.
That's what was happening. Basically, he kind of passed out and was acting stupid and dove this airplane down towards the Gulf. And I mean, that's really. I mean, the guys that rode in the back of the Vigilante were an incredible breed.
Yeah.
These guys were, the expression goes nowadays, the Cayunes they're magnificent.
Opie tells a story of when he was flying F-8, F-8Ps are they called? F-8P Crusaders, the photo reconnaissance?
F-8.
Or the F-8s.
Oh, RF-8s. Yeah, he flew RF-8s. Yeah.
RF-8s, that's right, RF-8s.
Reconnaissance fighters, yeah.
Yeah, the same type of, same type of mission, just you got to have the intelligence. With
less sensors.
Right. Well, the A-5 came in.
Yeah, still they were good guys.
Yeah, but
a lot of the RF-8 guys did a tour of nose, and a lot of them wanted them vigilantes.
They all moved on to vigilantes.
Well, the F-8 was supposedly, tapering off and using it less, and the big decks, the F-8 they stayed on the 27 Charlies that were converted Essex class.
Right.
Whereas the bigger deck allowed the Vigilante to go on. And as I say, again, the advantage is that we did have a few more sensors than the Crusader did. So they kind of did that. And of course, the funny thing is, in the long run, there were F-8s flying in the U.S. Navy about 4 years after the last Vigilantes had gone away. So yeah. I always wanted to fly the Crusader, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That was a turn on.
Yeah, I read a lot about the F-8. It's a pretty amazing airplane.
It is.
Yeah, so you said the Intrepid. Next month, I'm taking a spring break with my kids up to the Intrepid Museum up in New York City.
I'm sorry, to which museum?
The Intrepid.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a kick. I went to. Can't think of it back when I was flying for Pan Am, so that dates it right there, the late '80s, I guess. I had a day off from training at Kennedy, and and hayakaed myself down to my old boat. And I spent basically the morning just kind of walking around and seeing what was where and everything else like that. And some of it really kind of hit. And the cute story was now it's about lunchtime. And as I'm trying to almost about to leave, I see this big table and saying intrepid crew members check in here. So I stopped at the desk and I says, the air wing count? You guys are the air wing? And they kind of, their eyes lit up. And next thing you know, I'm being squired to the office and interviewing with somebody.
What?
And she even asked me, she said, is there anything particular you wanted to see? And I says, well, you restored the Combat Information Center and some of the bridge and stuff. It was good. And I remember that. And I said, what I'm really curious about is the bunk room that I lived in.
Oh, wow.
In 1967. And she says, what was it? I says, I have no idea what the number was. You know, the Navy numbers, all these.
Oh, yeah. What, you're talking about the bullseye, right?
Yeah, it's got all these crazy numbers. I said, I don't remember that, but it was a six-man bunk room. Six-man bunk room. And it adjoined a head. There was everything. The bathroom was right next on the other side of the bulkhead. And you entered from here. And she stopped and thought about it for a minute. And she said, oh, and I said, you had to get over, what was that? It must have been part of the catapult arrangement, the thwart ships, a big heavy thing we had to climb over. And I described that. And she says, you know, I think where it is. And she led me through these passages. And at one point in the Intrepid's life, some industrial schools and stuff played with it. So there were cut welding panels here, and of course all the paint is flaking and feeling from all this non-public areas. She took me through all this.
Wow.
She went through, she finally finds this one space, and we go into a door, and we kind of turn right to go into it. And I'm just looking at the bunks, the old empty bunks, and there's the head right there. And I said, yeah, but I think the doorway was on the other side. And she says, yeah, probably was. The ship went in for a major overhaul just after 2 years after I'd gotten off, and they rearranged a lot of things. That kind of, wow. It was one of those.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm over excited. You know, we just went up to the Smithsonian a couple of weeks ago and, you know, got to walk around again. It's been a couple of years.
Okay. The mall or do it at Udvar-Hazy?
Udvar-Hazy.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw Bob Hoover's airplane, and that was pretty neat. And you know, the kids got to see the space shuttle, and that was pretty awesome. And then,
did they tell you the story about Hoover?
No.
You brought the strike commander.
Well, I talked my kids are 11 and 8, and you know they're just starting to get the buzz on aviation. So
good for them, though.
Yeah, I'd love for one of them to you know, wear some wings of gold one day, but we'll see. They you know.
Anyway, I went up there I've been there several times. I'm trying to remember which time I heard this story, but one of the docents was explaining about the Shrike Commander. You know, they of course have kind of a taxiway coming off of Dulles.
Yep.
So they can get down there and bring the big airplanes and stuff like that. And Hoover flew his in. He's taxiing the Shrike Commander. And they got kind of to the door. They opened the giant gates and doorways and stuff like that. Shut it down. We're going to tow it in. He said, no, you're not.
He drove it.
You want this airplane? I am taxing it into the museum. And of course, being Bob Hoover, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So he's probably the only guy that taxied his airplane into the museum.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. They're awesome people up there.
Yeah. They the B-26 they're restoring is pretty amazing. You know, just wonderful exhibits, but nothing like what Mr. Yegan's put together down there in Virginia Beach. It really is a.
Well, look at it this way, Pete. Too. It's kind of two different ideas. You know, the Smithsonian is the perfection, and this is what it all looked like. And yes, they are museum pieces.
Right.
Where we're saying, yeah, they're collectibles and they're important to our heritage and stuff, but if you can't see them fly, what's the point?
Well, up until 2 years ago, I've never been to an event. You know, 20 years in the Navy, I had my fair share of air shows. But, you know, I've never been to something so unique as Warbirds over the beach or biplanes and triplanes. I haven't been to every, you know, the flying proms. I haven't been to that yet, but
oh, there's the big again.
Yeah, I know. I gotta find time in the schedule to get there. But
well, if you can find the time and work it out to come to Warbirds over the beach ties you up for the weekend. There's no question about that.
Right.
But the proms is only Saturday afternoon and evening.
Yeah.
For you guys. And I will offer you a glider ride if you stick around for Sunday. We'll take you out and take you for a glider ride.
Oh, geez, now you're talking. Well, I went down there to last October, Atlanta Warbird weekend, which I missed biplanes and triplanes for the 75th anniversary of the Tuskegee Airmen. So I got to do some interviews with the Tuskegee guys and take a flight in a Sentinel L-5 owned by a retired captain, Steve Seal, and plugged my gear in, and we got to do a little bit of ICS recording and flight, and it was pretty neat event. It brings a little bit of real aviation stuff to the crowd that listens to the podcast. But
well, that's it. And of course, the other thing that's great now is, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking, we're in the slow period right now.
Yeah.
As far as a lot of it, there's still guests coming through, and there's still retirement ceremonies and a couple of weddings, and I mean, we're opening up to all sorts of stuff. But I think in April we start the ride program again, and you can purchase a ride in our Stearman or in our Waco.
There you go.
The advantage of the Waco is we stick 2 people up there in the front seat, as long as the combined weight is less than 360 pounds.
Right.
But you can do that, and that is truly an aviation experience. And then after Memorial Day, we go wide open, and we go 4 days a week. We do the weekends and Tuesdays and Thursdays, unless they're going to change it this week. So you get to fly in a real live, genuine Warbird. And Waco's not, but heck, open cockpit biplane, you can't beat it with a stick.
No, you can't.
Great fun.
We're talking to Boom Powell, author, historian, veteran, awesome pilot. Boom, we're going to take us.
Me yet. You know, I'm an awesome pilot.
We're going to take a short break here, Boom.
Terrific.
We'll be back in a minute.
Aviators Hotline has been bringing buyers and sellers together for 39 years. The aviation community has come to rely on them to assist in the buying and selling of single, twin, and turboprop aircraft, as well as parts and services. Published monthly in print and digital format, Aviators Hotline is positioned to be your true marketing solution with multimedia options. Visit aviatorshotline.com or aircraftforsale.com for more information.
Okay, we're back. Thanks, Boom. I gotta give the props to our magazine. Well, not my magazine, but the guys over at Aviators Hotline. They do great stuff. They've got, I don't know, have you ever seen it? It's a great if you're looking in the market for airplanes, Aviators Hotline.
Yeah, I think I have at some point.
Yeah.
The problem with most of those for sale airplanes magazines and listings, and of course the real famous Yellow Pages thing, too much temptation. If I had the money type story on the thing, but it's fascinating. Yeah, great stuff in those.
It is a lot of temptation, and you look through it, and there's all kinds of new technologies that they're advertising. This ADS-B stuff coming out in 2020. So you see the avionics getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So.
Oh, it's to the point where it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Those are the latest thing, little chips. Yeah.
Are you writing a new book right now?
Yes, I am doing another Vigilante book. Of course, you're familiar, and we talked about it. And do I have one sitting here where I can hold in front of the screen? No. Wave Off. I can duck to the back of the room and find it. Wave Off's been going very well, by the way, the sales of it, the history of landing on the ship, LSOs in particular. And Specialty liked it enough, or Mike Machat, recognize the name, aviation artist type thing, but he's also an editor. Anyway, Mike kind of sent me this thing. He says, do you realize there has never been a complete book written on the Vigilante? And I kind of furrowed my brow, and I said, what do you mean? He says, it's never all been tied together. Some of the technical thing, how they built it, some of the stories. Mine is even restricted. I mean, it's the Vigilante in Combat, which doesn't cover the whole story. He says there have been 8 books published on the Vigilante, 7 books published on the Vigilante. I did the research, and they're all softbound. And he says it is time for a 12 by 12 hard copy, lots of pictures like Wave Off is on the Vigilante, and I signed the contract 2 weeks ago.
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
Hear my...
That's great.
Anybody that thinks writing those books is easy, yeah, it's really tough. But it's been fun because it's gotten me in touch with a lot of the old Vigi people that I've
Yeah.
heard for a while, and it's worse than searching for a school reunion. It's trying to find people that go all over the place
Right.
doing that. But that's still it. And when somebody pops up, I say, hey, you know where, or who else do you know, and stuff. So the list has been growing, and guys are going through attics and finding old pictures for me and sending stuff in. So there'll be a lot of new imagery on it.
Now,
Plus good stories.
I remember having a conversation with you either last year or the year before about, where every vigilante on a stick is, don't you?
Yes.
And there's
I
quite.
think I do.
What's
Yes,
that?
I'm pretty sure I do. And including discovering that one of them has gone away somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there's one at Pax River here that I drive by every now and then.
Nope. You got two.
Oh, that's right. There's two at.
There's two. You got one at the museum,
So-
and then you got one outside the gate or something, and that's the only A3J that's on display.
Oh, there you have it.
The others are recce versions.
Nice. And then, of course, there's one on a stick that brings memory to me because I went to A school there in Millington, Tennessee.
Oh, Memphis.
Yeah.
It was the last one to fly.
Well, that was the last vigilante to fly, huh?
That was the last vigilante to fly. Everybody's being dispersed. The diaspora has come and are going other places like that. A guy named E.O. Williams, Captain E.O. Williams, CO of RVH. He flew way, vigilante way back. CO of RVH 14. He was the CO of the RAG when I went through. Later on was the wing commander, the recce wing commander. The next to last recce wing commander. He was still in active Navy and went to Memphis.
Wow.
Of course, the end is coming. Whatever's done when part of some training up there. And while he's up there, he knew the last vigilantes were coming, and one was going to go to Memphis. And he delayed his retirement until that airplane flew in.
Wow.
The airplane also had a maintenance issue when it was getting ready to go. The landing gear couldn't be retracted.
How do you recall all this stuff?
Just people tell you the stories. It all comes out. So the airplane, the last vigilante to fly, flew all the way from Key West, Florida to Memphis, Tennessee with the landing gear hanging down.
Wow.
And that's the one you see. There's one in Key West. There's one in Fallon, Nevada. There's one at the Pima Museum in, what is that, Tucson. There's about three more. The Midway has one.
Yep.
Midway in San Diego.
Is there one on the Intrepid?
There was. This is the one that I say kind of disappeared. I was trying to find out if it was still currently there, and they sent it to some museum in upstate New York I never even heard of. So I don't even know it's back on display or buried in a big hangar somewhere.
Right.
Doing that. Lakehurst, New Jersey had one.
Yep.
And that's the one they dropped into the Pine Barrens when they were forming that museum down there in southern Jersey at
Yeah.
or whatever they're calling it now, the Southern Jersey something, and doing that. And the Air National Guard guys hooked it to the bottom of a helicopter and flew, and it did whatever that helicopters do. I mean, it set up this pendulum going, and they had to chop it loose.
Wow.
So it's buried out there in a cranberry bog somewhere. So if your cranberries taste funny at Thanksgiving, you know it's vigilante.
Those are vigilante cranberries.
Yeah, vigilante crans. So it did that. Yeah, so that's where that one went.
So yeah, 12 by 12, man. Hardback, softback, a whole kind of, yeah.
It'd be a beauty.
That's awesome.
And it's already, it's fun because of the experience I had doing wave off. Now I have some more information on the thing, and I'm already keeping an eye on certain photographs, and I'm aware of the acceptance level for what can be published and what can't be as far as resolution and quality. And I'm turning a lot of people on to, if it's an oversized thing and your home scanner won't do it, welcome to Office Depot.
Is that book behind you, that blue cover, is that an ATOPS?
It sure is.
I'll pick one out in a room, Boom. I'm telling you right now.
Well, the kicker on the NATOPS manual, of course, is way back when I'd saved ATOPS manuals from not only the airplanes I had flown, but from almost all every other airplane I could find. And the stack was big there, and I'm going, what am I going to do with all these?
I know.
And I think I sent them all to the Taylor Association for their collection or something. So I was kind of desperate, and fortunately I found how long involved separate personal story, but besides the point, the wife of a guy, the vigilante pilot, one of the last vigilante youngsters, and she was cleaning out the stuff and says, do you want a copy of the A-5 NATOS manual?
Oh my God.
And I says, there's a bear in the woods, right? One of these things like that. So I have the full thing. By the way, this has been thinned down.
Yeah.
You remember the manuals from the days? They got these kind of spikes that run through the holes.
Oh my. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. With the screw. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can change the pages fast and do that. One of these things like that. This thing was another third as thick as that. And it was basically unusable for my purposes. So I ripped about the first 4 chapters off and bound them separately.
Now, single seat vigilante or a double seat, guy in the back, guy in the front.
Yep.
You're not carrying that in the flight deck or in the cockpit, are you?
I'm sorry, the which?
Is that in the airplane with you while you're flying?
The Vigi guys.
Yeah.
Our RANs were actually separated from us.
Yeah.
Remember, they're behind us. There's actually a bulkhead. And our standing joke was if we screwed up at 600 knots and flew into the side of the mountain, I'd be dead 0.8 seconds before he did. It wasn't helping. But again, following Navy philosophy, remember as we did with the A6, the F4, we don't have a second set of controls.
Yeah.
Unlike the Air Force F4s. And the guy in the back basically had nothing.
He's just along for the ride, doing his job, right?
Well, yeah, doing his job. And that's the big point that I always try to make when people kind of say, what was the second guy there for? He was the equipment operator, number 1. 2, he was the navigator.
Right.
The airplane is navigated by an inertial navigation system. Back in the initial days, they said, we want something that's not radar.
Right.
Because that's detectable and can pick all the stuff up. And they basically took the inertial navigation units off the submarines.
So they were putting INSs on these airplanes for the first time. They were putting these INSs on the airplane for the first time.
I think the Vig was the first one to carry one.
Wow.
It was big enough. Yeah, now a lot of airplanes use INSs, and of course now GPSs, and there's all kinds of nav systems.
Right.
Yeah, we had an INS, and that required a lot of operating. So what the guy in back did, he had a little cursor control handle. Rather than trying to spin a dial, he just moved a handle. You can do that. I'm changing latitude, I'm changing longitude. And he used other things as well. He was basically looking at 2 big optics in front of him, okay?
Yep.
One of them was a viewfinder, which is pure optical. There's no electrical, well, there's electric involved in the sensing systems of it. And he'd watch the ground with this. He could actually see a little bit underneath the airplane and almost out to the horizon in front. It was viewfinder sitting over here. On the viewfinder was a series of yellow amber lines that moved. And one of his jobs was to tweak this little dial to make sure these amber lines were matching on the ground.
Right.
He set the exposure speed of the cameras.
Oh, okay.
Pictures, okay? The motion sensor, IMC, image motion compensation. God, I remembered it, IMC. And set the IMC. So that's one scope. And they're about this big, okay?
Yeah.
Matching it in size over on the other side was his radar scope, okay?
Yep.
One of the advantages they had, those little tiny windows up there,
Yeah.
they usually didn't close them. Or they usually closed them, rather. Because then they're going to put a hood on to watch a radar scope like the A6 guys did.
Right.
They could just look at their blank screen. So, slated to the inertial navigation system, there'd be a line on the radar scope, an azimuth line, and a range mark, a range arc. And he'd slew his little thing over there, and he'd put those right on top of some radar significant thing or your target.
Yep.
Out there like that, and say, okay, here's where it is, here's how far it is, here we are, all this type of nifty stuff. Now, really cool, look at a picture of a vigilante. And under the chin of the airplane, just behind the radome on the bottom there,
Yeah.
is a blister that's about this big. And it's a television scanner.
Okay.
There's a scanner head in there inside of a glass enclosure, okay? And when he reached a certain range, and he says, okay, let's see what the TV does. He clicks a button, and the radar went from kind of an orangish color to kind of a bluish gray color, and that was a television picture.
Wow.
and the cursors are still there.
So he's laying
So we do it visually.
I got you.
Yeah, and I'm changing from a radar picture. I'm looking when I'm in, a certain range, can do that, and it was all set. So it's really kind of a cool gadget.
We're talking about 1960s, though. This technology in the 60s.
1962 was basically the beginning of it. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm in the recce world, so we're talking 64.
Okay.
Yeah, because the viewfinder wasn't in the bomber version. All they had was the radar scope and the television now. And the kicker in the television, by the way, is the head was not stabilized. You could twist it. You could point it.
Right.
The farther off center he was, the more it tilted.
Okay.
So it's going like this. So when he was 45 degrees off, it was tilted about 45 degrees.
Right. And your profile, your flight profile at the time, wings level, high altitude.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's doing, yeah.
Huh? Well, he could look at it from there, but the other thing, though, is when they get down low, he could actually look aft.
Oh, he could turn it around.
His television thing and turn all the way look behind him, but now it's upside down. He's looking like this. So the joke became, he's checking our landing gear.
Oh, right.
He would say smart ass things like, "You got 3 up." Of course, the pilot are going, "What?" Because these 3 little wheels would be sticking up in his television view.
Upside down.
It was upside down.
Yeah.
And he looked, by the way, when he was looking forward, coming aboard ship, he was looking at a full ball lower than the pilot was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if the pilot was down to a low ball, he's looking at the red flashing one. They were quite a bunch, I'm telling you.
So he's in your ear the whole time on the is he telling you, hey, you're low? Oh, they just knew.
Most of them didn't talk to you too much. Most of them knew.
Yeah.
You work with a guy for a long time and did that, and you were a hot microphone type thing. But no, he would very little coaching on the ball. No, you're flying that one by yourself.
How many carrier landings do you have?
460 something, 468, something like that.
Wow.
About 150 of those are at night.
150 at nighttime.
Yeah. Well, the secret for nighttime, everybody makes this big issue of it. I kind of did too, A4 versus scary. The vigilantes, and even by the time I was in Vietnam, 70, 71, we didn't do enough night work to really count. So we had 6 pilots. We had 6 crews on board. And we'd had a night team concept. In other words, you go out for the typically 30-day line period or close to it. And the guys that were designated for the night team would go out that very first day. They'd get a day mission, day trap, and they'd go that night. And that's the last time they saw the sun for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
We're the night team.
Yeah.
2 weeks normally. And you'd rotate through and you'd fly every night. And I'm telling you, by the 3rd night, you're going, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
It's all what you get used to.
Right.
All what you get used to.
Con ops. Normal operations.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to, what are you going to take a year to do this project? Maybe 2 years? For the new.
I'm sorry?
Are you going to block out a year to write the book?
Yeah, it's exactly a year. That's what I told the guys for my in the contract.
Wow. So, okay, great.
I'm used to the last one, and I knew that it was going to take about a year, so I gave it a year. I'm front loading this one a little bit more than the previous one.
Right.
So one of those things. I did that. Okay, what did I just do here?
You pumped up the volume a little bit. There you
I
go.
jumped the volume, but I also shifted your picture from 2 pictures and 1 bed. It didn't make a difference. Yeah, it'll take about a year. Everybody's falling in place. Looking forward to it, actually. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. So we're going to see you again down at the museum. Hey, can you give me a little bit of what's going to happen this year?
Well, again, I'm not sure what the new ones are. Actually, it's funny. Warbirds over the beach, there's not a whole bunch of changes. As you probably know, we had a contretemps with our Avenger. It landed on a very normal landing, and the right landing gear collapsed, and then the left one followed it and shoot at the end. And it's in the shop now, kind of tucked in a corner, and hopefully it'll be there ready for the World War II show.
Right.
And that World War II. No, nothing new from last year, airplane-wise. in World War II that, as far as I know of.
Now the BF-109, where was the?
That flew last year.
Oh, it did. It did fly.
Oh boy, did it! I mean, you talk about a heartthrob airplane.
Yeah.
I still remember, of course, the day the show was working up, our rehearsals the day before, or the day of. I'm way up at the one end of the ramp, talking to a bunch of people, and then somebody says, "But the 109's taking off."
Yeah.
He came snarling past, maybe 50 feet with the gear coming up.
I remember
I
that.
mean, we've got a Corsair, we have Mustangs, and we got P-40s, and we even have the Mosquito. None of those airplanes have the same impact when they fly past as that 109G does. It's just, yeah.
It must be that it is a Daimler-Benz engine, isn't it?
It really is. It's just, as I say, it's a terrific airplane. I love being in it. I haven't even had a chance to sit in it yet, but at some point up there and do that.
Yeah.
I like to sit in, even though I don't get to fly them, I like to sit in all of them at some point.
Yeah.
Especially for my historical thing, and I'm writing about it, and things like, what was the lookout like? How far did you see? And the G was notorious for bad, with nothing else, because of that. The cockpit structure in the 109, all the 109s, you could build a steel bridge across a river with that thing.
Yeah.
They were really heavy, and I'm talking about the weight I was given. Like, it's 60 pounds for the canopy.
It is an awkward-looking canopy.
I'm sorry?
It is an awkward-looking canopy.
It is an awkward-looking canopy, number one. Well, remember, I don't know, Galland himself came up with the Galland hood, where they kind of semi-bubbled it, like the Spitfire, with kind of a semi-bubble.
Yeah.
A little bit of, but and did that. But think about the firepower that thing carried. It's a mean critter. It really is a mean critter.
It is. It is. How long you been flying airplanes down at the museum for Jerry?
I'd have to look. My first association with the museum was I flew in '99. Yeah, that's the same year I started gliding, by the way, too. I first started in '99. I've been flying with them ever since.
And you're flying more of the World War I airplanes, don't you?
I'm the big I love World War I stuff.
I do too.
I got hooked on that right away, and I'm always the guy is you get something wacky and that nobody else really is interested in, give it to Boom. He'll fly it or try flying it. And there have been some peculiar airplanes. Unfortunately, some of the ones I've really enjoyed have gone away. But I went to what we call the bad time.
Yeah.
There's a financial question that came up, and Jerry had to sell, I think it was a dozen airplanes. The sad thing was that some of my favorites went away. Granted, it was only one of the triplanes. We had a lot of triplanes, but we sold a Fiesler Storch at that time.
Oh, wow.
And that was another favorite of mine. I just thought that airplane was a giggle.
How about the dry deckers? Do you fly the DR1s?
The triplanes?
Yeah.
The dry deckers? Yeah. Well, we got a whole bunch of new ones there. I kept saying we had nothing new for World War II, but by autumn, we got a handful of new airplanes. So we got a Sopwith triplane now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the cowling on that thing, I'm sure, is not realistic. It's beautiful polished aluminum. It just looks gorgeous. Did that. We have another Sopwith 1.5 strutters, and now we have 2 strutters. This one's apparently a lot more authentic than the one that was in the movie Flyboys.
Right.
Do have that. 2 new triplanes, one of which is a genuine rotary engine. So we're all kind of looking forward to that.
Are you serious? It's got a rotary engine in it.
Rotary engine in it. Well, the museum has a rotary. We got a running rotary from before, but was mounted on as a big steel, engine mount type thing just to demonstrate to do it.
Well, I've seen that a couple of times. It's pretty. That thing is pretty awesome, and
what is?
To see a real now. This exhibit or this new airplane he's got, is it airborne? Is it airworthiness?
Oh yeah, it's gonna fly, and I'm not sure who's gonna get that. And of course, my hand's going, hey, choose me, send me in, coach, send me. Love to do that. What's the other? We got another World War I sticking in there type thing. We got that big giant 2-place Blériot blasting around again.
Yeah.
So we're in good shape, World War I wise, and we're doing that. We got I think all the Fokkers are flyable again.
Oh my God! I know.
A new engine or overhaul the engine on the Jenny. So we got that's the only authentic World War I airplane we have is the Curtiss Jenny. Everything else is a replica.
Right.
but the Jenny was built in 1918
Oh, wow.
and did that. So that's the big show for there. And then I'm not sure what's going to show up for proms, because, that's kind of a mixed bag. They're doing everything in there. I'm sure there's going to be at least one World War I flying, but my dilemma is the young guy that he's a musician and works with the orchestra. He's a former classical music announcer type thing. Started announcing the shows. Jonathan Lichtenstein.
Oh, yeah.
One of those points there. Yeah, he's the voice of our air shows. But he also gets very heavily involved with the orchestra and what's going to be played and what's not going to play. And he's also a film freak. So he goes back and finds his obscure movies. And there's this obscure Russian thing he found somewhere. And the music is in the Library of Congress. So there's no problem with paying royalties or anything else. So we're going to do that. The problem is the airplane is the Polikarpov, the old PO2.
Oh, wow.
Plane that the Night Witches flew. And the engine, when Kaflooey, God bless, more than a year ago, and starting back in November, the new one's in Russia. It's been rebuilt. It's on its way. It's on its way.
Wow.
Any day now, it's going to be here. Yeah. And what are we into now? We're into February.
Yeah. I gotta give TK a call again before we get down there to find out the scoop on how things are working out. I know he put up a video recently of the Hellcat getting fired up there and going through its maintenance motions. So those guys down there are amazing.
Oh no, not a Hellcat. I'll correct you again. No, we don't have a Hellcat.
Oh,
we want a Hellcat. A Hellcat? We'll take a Hellcat.
It's a Wildcat.
Corsair. Wildcat.
Yeah,
okay.
The Wildcat. Sorry, not the Hellcat. The Wildcat. I get all the cats mixed up.
That's okay. That's true. It works out. Yeah, it's another great show. We're looking forward to it, and of course the reenactors are just love those guys.
All right. Well, I'm just blessed to have this conversation with you, Boom. I'd love to have you on the show more, and we'll talk about your book and how things are working out for the. Do you have a title of this new book, or are you guys still working through that?
We haven't got a title. We're joking about it, and they're coming up with these 15-word titles, and I'm going, you don't want that. All the others were Vigilante or something similar. It's going to be Vigilante with some long subtitle. I wanted to call it The Complete Vigilante, as in COMPLEAT.
Oh, I see.
Complete angler and all, the old-fashioned term, which, by the way, is a very legitimate word. Wouldn't do that. All my files are labeled Book 8.
Book 8.
Book 8.
Book number 8. All right.
Book 8. It's so short and so easy. It's Book 8. Book 8. So you look through my files on the computer, and there they are. Book 8.
So we're talking with Boom Powell. You want to see more on Boom Powell? Put his name in Google and watch some of his videos. I watched a C-SPAN video today. He's gives a great dissertation on World War I airplanes. It's fascinating, Boom. It's on the internet. It's readily available. Is there anything else you'd like to talk to the audience about what you're doing or what the museum's doing?
I'm sorry. I have so much fun talking to all you guys on all this sort of stuff, and it's as you can tell, we're wandering through. If I remember, our conversation started saying, "Tell me about yourself." We never got past my Navy days.
How about I have you back?
Anytime.
Good.
Anytime.
Good. Now we've got this Skype thing fixed and worked out. We'll set something up for next month if you'd like. I would like that, and then we could talk a little bit more about commercial aviation days, because
some of the oddballs. We can talk about skydiving too.
Yeah. You mentioned Pan Am, and I that's a whole nother show, dude.
Last great glory days of Pan American, and I mean the stories of the last day. The only reason the company lasted a couple more years was the first Desert War.
Yeah.
We were part of all the Mac charter fleet.
Yep.
And craft fleet, they called it. And flying in and out of the desert, and some of those tales alone are just absolutely phenomenal. That's a great time.
I definitely. Oh, let me write this down. Hold on. Pan Am Desert Days.
Yep.
On the Hangar Deck podcast.
Yeah, you can do that. We'll talk about Pan Am.
Well, we'll talk to you before then.
This format is working. One of the things we can kind of do, I'll pull out my scrapbook, so to speak, from Pan Am.
Oh, that'd be great.
A lot of stuff in those days, and then some interesting pictures in there.
Well, if you shoot me,
the guys, by the way, some very cute flight attendants.
Okay, that's going to be a good show. If you've got any digital pictures, send them to me, and I'll pump them on the feed so they can see it more clearly. Yeah, we'll see. All right, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, maybe. How's that sound, Boom?
Just let me know.
All right, and then we'll see each other in person on May. We're going to come in May 18th, I think, or May 17th is a Thursday night. So we'll be down there for Friday for flight ops, of course, May 19th and 20th. The big Warbirds over the beach. You can get to meet Boom, and all the other pilots and all the other docents and everybody else at the museum. And we'll be there.
And I even mentioned the new director. Get to talk to him. Got some interesting stuff.
Cool.
He's kind of interesting too. I mean, anybody named Jarud, got it for his last name already. Despite his very Dutch-sounding name, he's an Alaskan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him yet. I know.
His previous job, he was the director of the Alaskan Air Museum.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, it's fun.
We got to get that guy. We got to get that guy on a horn. I was talking to Mitch about. I told him, hey,
probably
is the invite still open to Mitch? And he said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to see you guys. So, all right, we're gonna wrap it up. Saturday night, a Hangar Deck podcast. Thank you, Boom, from all of us here, which is just me right now. We'll see you next time, buddy.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.